Let me just stop that. Maybe it's better. Oh, wow. Hello, everyone. Let me make a social media. My internet is going very slow right now for some reason. Stream live. Okay, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the stream. I'm a little bit late. I meant to stream an hour ago. What's up, Squall? What's up, Holly? What's up, TC? I meant to stream like an hour ago, but I woke up late because I started playing Overwatch again, and I stayed up till like 7 a.m. playing Overwatch. So I messed up my sleep schedule there. Can everybody see and hear me? Gonna be the first like. Appreciate it, Gunter. What's up, Eric? Love your videos, dude. I appreciate that. Got little stray locks trying to escape my head. Well, we're back. Another live stream. If you don't know, live streams are just super chill. We just answer questions, tell stories, whatever you want to do. And for those that don't know, I stream every Monday, or at least that's the plan. Sometimes I don't stay to it. New Maid, thank you for the 20 pound. How's that new lens coming along? The new lens? What do you mean? You mean the new camera for the streams? Oh, you mean buying the new lens? Yeah. Well, I haven't bought a new one yet. But you know, I'm saving my money. It'll happen. I recently ran into some car issues, so I've had to dip into savings to fix my car, which is kind of unfortunate. But it'll happen. I'm a lot better about saving money, or like at least putting money into savings for things like that. I mean, I don't have a lot of money in savings, but I'll eventually get to the point where I can get the things that I need, including the new lens. But probably, well, no, I'm not that familiar with lenses. Is this some on my face? So I'll have to do some research to see exactly what I need. I might just do, I don't know. I want a lot of stuff. I want a new camera. I want several new lenses. There's a bunch of stuff that I want, and we'll get there eventually. How often do I live stream? Well, in general, I live stream every Monday, so once a week. Every now and then I'll do just a random impromptu stream where I might like play a game or something, but generally once a week on Monday. And then just depending if I'm busy or preoccupied or if I am tired or something, and then I might skip the stream, or I may push it back to like Tuesday or Wednesday. But you can always go to theonejanitor.com/live. And if I am on top of things, it should tell you when the next stream is. There should be like a little countdown. Sometimes I'm not on top of things, but I'm getting better at it. Chad, thank you for the $5. Howdy, everyone. This is my first time seeing you live stream. Well, thanks for coming to the stream. The easiest way to catch all of the streams is to enable notifications, i.e. click that little bell next to the subscribe button, and it will notify you when I'm live. But I understand some people don't like the notifications, so it's on you. Did the no nut November thing annoy you? It didn't annoy me. I didn't really pay that much attention to it. I just thought it was funny because I saw people talking about sober October, and then people talking about no nut November, and it just seems like a very depriving holiday season there. I don't know. I'm kind of a guess I'm kind of a hedonist. I don't like depriving myself of pleasure. I have some celery and hummus, but I won't allow you to hear me chew. You should play Red Dead Redemption 2. Well, I don't have it, and I don't have any systems. Is it on PC? Feel free to gift me the game, and I'll definitely play it. Do a live stream about specific topics? Can we bring up any topic? You can bring up any topic you want. You can ask questions. These live streams are very sporadic. Sometimes they are very silly, and sometimes they're pretty serious. It just depends on what the chat is thinking. Curious about your thoughts on Jordan Peterson. I get asked about Jordan Peterson a lot. Basically, the more that I think about, the more that I see Jordan Peterson, the more that I hear from him, the less interesting I think he is. I just don't think he says anything that's like very useful or very interesting. And he says a lot of things that are just kind of just bizarre and borderline sexist. But I think he just kind of plays up to his audience. He has this audience of like sort of young white dudes that don't know anything about how the world works. So he can get away with saying like really just ridiculous stuff because they just don't know any better. A few months back, Netflix made a movie about Anders Breivik. I don't know how to say his name, but that's like the Norwegian killer dude, right? He did what he did for attention. Does that mean making a film about him is playing to his hands? I don't know, man. A lot of people say that. I don't really agree with that. It doesn't, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think it's something of public interest, and that's fine. Like, I don't know. I never really got that whole argument. It's like, don't give them any attention. Don't say their name. It just seems very hokey and like it doesn't do anything when you like, what's the point? Who cares? If you're looking for a PC game on the cheap, Warframe is free and I enjoy it a lot. A lot of people I know play Warframe. I didn't know that it was free. I need to check it out. Peter Coffin does a pretty good Jordan Peterson impersonation. Well, I mean, I think that Joe Rogan tries to always get these people that are making waves on his podcast, and people like Jordan Peterson will are happy to be platformed, so they will go on any show where they believe that they can spread their messages. What's up, Amelia? And I think that Joe Rogan is interested in this sort of anti-SJW mentality. And Jordan Peterson is just another person who basically follows that narrative. So I think Joe Rogan is happy to talk to people like that. Even though I'm sure that Joe Rogan probably disagrees with a lot of stuff that Jordan Peterson says, but Joe Rogan is the type of guy who he's like it's called the balance fallacy. Basically, when you have this idea that all opinions and all points of view and all arguments are equally valid or equally likely to be valid, even if you don't agree with them, you think that they are equally valuable and equally warranting of discussion, which that's why it's called fallacy, because it's a fallacy. Joe Rogan or Sam Harris? These days, I like Joe Rogan a lot more. Kind of depends on what they're talking about, I guess. The thing about, like, I think that Sam Harris has a very, very clear agenda. And a lot of his content, well, I mean, not like everything he does, but he's like part of this sort of wave of anti-progressivism right now, and I think he has a very clear agenda, and I think that he is conscious of his agenda whenever he makes content or whenever he like talks to people on this subject. Joe Rogan, I don't think has an agenda. Like Joe Rogan just says what he thinks about stuff, and what he thinks about stuff is I sometimes disagree with, but I don't think that Joe Rogan will downplay his opinion on something um because it doesn't fit with his agenda. Whereas Sam Harris does all the time. Like a lot of people assume that Sam Harris is a right winger or a Trump supporter or yada 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 because of the way he speaks and the things that he chooses to talk about. But he's not really. Like if you know follow him closely, which obviously not everyone's gonna do. Sam's biggest problem with the left is they insulted him and they didn't apologize, and now it's been like 6 or 7 years. I don't know, man. If you want to know my thoughts on Sam Harris, I made a 20-minute video about it that you can watch. Bush Sr.'s dead. What was your opinion of him? I honestly don't know that much about Bush Sr. Bush Sr. was the president when I was like 3 or something. So I don't really remember what he did, and I've never really looked into it much. And I honestly think that that applies to a lot of people. Like, I don't know, if you're like 22 years old and you're talking about the policies of George Bush Sr., I'm gonna take it with a large grain of salt. It's hard for me to believe that you know what you're talking about. No, of course it's possible that you researched it, but did you though? Sam Harris really helped me out. He helped me like sort of he helped me arguably he indirectly helped me get better at critical thinking because sometimes we fall into this idea where if we like someone for one thing or we believe that someone is right about one thing, then we assume that they're right about other things because they say the other things with the same amount of confidence. But that's just not always the case. But a lot of the problem too is Sam Harris rarely is. See, this is like a problem with the left a lot of the time. Is like there's a lot of, I don't know how to describe it. Basically, arguments from emotion. And I feel like throughout Sam Harris's career, he's rarely challenged like intellectually from a basis of reason. Um, there's just a lot of, oh, what you said was outrageous, and you should know that, and I'm outraged, and you're a bad person, and you're a racist, and it's like, well, I mean, even if it's true, that's not going to convince him. That's just going to make him more defensive and more hard-headed about his thoughts. And even when you read an article that's just clearly like the person is exasperated and they haven't thoroughly looked over the points that Sam has made, and that makes it really easy for Sam to pick apart their things. And to be fair, Sam is very, very vague and hard to parse, and that's like part of the problem. And I think he does it on purpose. But there has been some. I think one of the biggest ones was the Ezra Klein discussion. Was like one of the first times where someone actually like confronted him on sort of a rational level, and sort of didn't let him get away with a lot of the same verbal tricks that he likes to use. And the thing is, and I don't know, a lot of people, when I made my video about Sam Harris, I obviously did a lot of research and watched a lot of stuff about him. And I went and rewatched I guess it was a debate that he had with Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks. And a lot of people, even people who dislike Sam Harris, said that it wasn't a very good debate and Cenk Uygur didn't do a very good job. But when I watched it back, I felt like Cenk Uygur was fine, and I think that probably that interview was the only time someone actually made him say his beliefs on Islam. Like, no one actually really made him state his actual opinions. Like, he always talks in sort of riddles and thought experiments and things like that, and no one actually really made him say his actual beliefs. So I think that debate was pretty useful for that. That's another thing about Sam Harris. It's really weird. Is he always attributes malice to his opponents? Like, almost always. Whenever someone disagrees with him, he almost always accuses them of being malicious and dishonest and intentionally misrepresenting him and intentionally trying to ruin his reputation. It's such a bizarre way to be. In Florida, for the last election, the GOP ran a very successful propaganda campaign that postured themselves as the environmentally friendly party. How do you deprogram such a blatant lie? I don't know, honestly. The Republicans are very good at getting people to believe things that aren't true. the only thing that I know you can do as an individual is to just plant seeds of doubt in people as the situation arises. Like, I don't confront people directly almost ever. That's just not my strategy. If that's what you want to try to do, that's you, but I can't really give you any thoughts on how to do that. But obviously, I make a lot of content, and I make a lot of statements. I talk a lot, and I part of the idea is to plant these seeds of information in people's heads, and over time, hopefully, the seed will lead to a little bit of doubt in one area, and just lead to a ripple effect where eventually they get to the truth. Like, if someone comes to me saying something that I know is not true, then I can just very calmly explain why it's not true and give them the evidence. Unlikely they're going to instantly change their mind, but you've planted a seed. And it may or may not, but it may encourage them to think a little more critically the next time they encounter this situation. And the thing about it is, you may not ever know if it works, and that's just something you're gonna have to live with. I can tell you that it does work because I'm in a unique position as a like quasi public figure where I I get people who specifically talk to me about stuff, and I get like emails and stuff from people who let me know when their minds have changed on something because of something I said. So it happens a lot. But as a just like a normal person who doesn't get random emails from people, you may never know if it works. But I think it's a good thing to do. But you should not presume to be able to change people's minds instantly. That almost never happens. Why do so many atheists presume that religious people believe everything in their holy book? I don't know. I think this is an argument that I um I don't know. I had to sort of understand this argument myself. The problem, though, like, I think it's bad to assume that religious people believe everything in their holy book, especially religious people in developed countries, because if they did, that would mean that they were all lunatics, because especially if you're talking about things like the Bible and the Quran, those books are full of violence and bigotry, and it's just bad. So it would just be impossible to live in a developed society if you actually took all of that literally. So it's a little bit foolish to assume that everyone that is a religious person follows that like fundamentally. However, the problem is most religious people still excuse and justify all of this stuff in those books. And I think that that's a problem. It's not as bad, but it's still a problem. And I don't know. On a philosophical level, I think it's dumb to base your life on a book but not follow the rules in it. Like, that just kind of more proves that religion is wrong. But that's if you want to have that debate, we can. But I don't think that that's like the pressing issue of our times right now. Right? I'm more worried about how you're treating people and what you're doing that's helpful to the world. Okay, I changed the link on Facebook. I don't know what it should have worked. I need to figure out why that's not working. What's up, Yoralita? How would you engage someone who becomes emotionally escalated and accusatory in a conversation? Well, I'm not the person to ask about stuff like that because I avoid conversations like that. For the record, I think that Ben Affleck was wrong in that conversation, but I guess probably many of you do as well. But yeah, me personally, my goal in life is not to get in these heated debates with people. I'm not interested in that. I think it's bad for my mental health. I'm not really, it's not my jam. As soon as someone starts becoming irrational and emotional or rude, I'm out. I'm just dipping out. I'm just completely out. I'm not into it at all. Why is my link not working? It says it's there. And I've had to make the same. I mean, I'm already pretty non-confrontational in person, but I've had to make the same change online. I definitely didn't always used to follow this rule online, but now online, I don't. If you come at me, being extra, I'm probably gonna ignore you. Probably gonna mute you, to be honest. Well, if you are, I'll probably only mute you if you're being a dick. But if you're being like extra and being emotional, I'm definitely not gonna respond to you. Do I play video games? I play some video games. I like competitive games mostly, but once I have a little bit more income, I probably will like buy more video games and play them. Why does everything on the internet require a credit card, not PayPal or credit card? I don't need that in my country. Well, through PayPal you can get a debit card. I don't know maybe it's available in your country. I'm not sure. You implied that you don't think capitalism is an inherently evil economic system. Can you foresee a future where capitalism functions ethically? Yeah, but it seems to be subjective what people consider ethically. Some people seem to imply that the mere idea of working for a private business is unethical, which I don't agree with. I saw one of your tweets about Charlottesville on an old Dusty Smith video because it has something crazy from Chris Ray Gun. Do you remember the exchange? Yeah. Well, it wasn't an exchange. It was just I just quote tweeted Chris Ray Gun because he had a bad take like he always does. He said something like he was responding to the Charlottesville rally. He said something like we didn't used to have Nazis marching in the streets because, or something like he's basically implied that the SJWs call everyone Nazis, and because the SJWs are calling everyone Nazis, that's the reason now why we have actual Nazis marching in the streets. So it's basically that argument. You probably heard that before, where people are like, well, if you stop calling everybody racist, and people will stop being racist or something. You know, like it's really stupid when you say it out loud. I'm trying to remember the exact phrasing that he used. He said something like wait, I can probably find it, honestly. Well, yeah, I mean, if you've seen the video, then you know the what he said because it's in the video. But for the benefit of those listening, I'll try to find the quote. He said, "You know when we didn't have Nazi rallies in the streets, sometime before we started throwing that term around like it meant nothing." And I responded, "You know when we didn't have Nazis in the streets, sometime before popular shitlords started justifying and excusing white supremacists." And that was it. There was no exchange. If he responded to me, I didn't see it. He probably did because it seems like something he would do. But that was a really bad take on his part. But I don't know, that guy. I've made the joke that I think that Chris Ray Gun is like an android whose sole programming is to make really bad takes on Twitter. Cause good lord, the stuff that dude tweets. I don't know what's going on with Tumblr. Ben Shapiro has frequently said like things like only the rich can afford to care about the environment. I don't understand the argument. I'd have to see what he means by that. What are your thoughts on the argument about the gender pay gap being related to the types of jobs men and women would naturally be inclined to choose? There's a lot of hidden premises in that. First of all, it's not true. Well, I mean, it's half true. So first of all, before we even go further with that, and I hesitate to talk about this because I've talked about the gender pay gap to death, and I've come to the conclusion that people are going to believe what they want to believe regardless of the evidence. But I've done a lot of research on this because I've made like 3 videos about the pay gap. The pay gap was sort of like my introduction into the SJW versus anti-SJW like debate space, and it really showed me that these people like don't give a shit about evidence or data. It's all about the agenda. It's all about shitting on the SJWs. Because there's so much data about the pay gap. Like there's an unlimited amount of data about it. Anyway, first of all, even when you factor in every study that has ever been done about the pay gap has factored in different levels of, choices that people make, work hours, education. They've controlled for all of that stuff. And there's always an unexplained pay gap left over. So the argument that the pay gap is 100% explained by the differences in men and women's choices is false. It's just not true. So people saying that are either ignorant, just like spouting something that someone else said, or they're just lying because it's not true. So first of all, that's the first thing we need to get through to you. But then beyond that, it's a more nuanced discussion. We need to ask why do women choose different jobs than men? So the first thing that people, I guess the first thing that may pop in your mind is biology. The biology makes them choose lower paying jobs. like the biology of women. And you know what? I'd love to see the data for that. I'd love to see some data that shows that women are biologically predispositioned to making shitty business decisions. I would love to see that. I haven't seen it yet. If it exists, I'd love to see it. There are certain things that I think have a little bit of merit to them, like women generally are more likely to want to raise families or become the primary caretaker of children, which can affect your job choices. That's true. Is it likely that alone accounts for the entirety of the pay gap? Probably not. Another big thing is women are less likely to negotiate their salaries than men are, which contributes to the pay gap. But why? Why do you think that is? That's the discussion we should be having. And we can have ideas about that. I think there are different ideas we can talk about. I think it's pretty obvious that the socialization of women has something to do with why they may be less assertive about negotiating with their salary. The perception of women as being hard to work with or bossy or bitchy whenever they are a little bit assertive. We know from a lot of other studies that women are seen as less competent than men. There's many studies that suggest that. So I think the conversation has been sort of stalled by this sort of disingenuous idea about they make different choices. That explains everything. Well, it doesn't. What do you think about this new kind of violence in open world video games, like the people brutally murdering the feminists in Red Dead 2? I mean, I don't know. I think that was mostly just a person trying to be edgy and for an audience. I'm not the person that's going to argue that media needs to change because it like makes people do bad stuff. Like I think that's an argument we've been having for decades and it just doesn't really hold up. And my guess is that kids playing Red Dead at home by themselves are not making their character a sociopath. I mean they might, but not in the way that this guy that did it on YouTube is doing it just for lulz. He means that only rich countries can afford to hamper their industries with environmental regulations. Well, yeah, I mean, but only rich countries. Well, I mean, rich countries are the ones causing most of the global warming anyway, and the rich corporations. So I mean, they should be doing most of the work to fix it. Do I think I was too easy on Stephen Colbert? No. Negotiating pay is hard as a woman is something I've assumed I would receive as ungrateful and more placeable. Well, yeah, exactly. The socialization of women clearly has a lot to do with that. Men don't necessarily have to have that same fear. When men are assertive, it's usually seen as a positive. It's like, yeah, I like the cut of your jib. But if women do it, it's like, I don't know, she's kind of hard to work with. I'm surprised with the James Damore thing. He gave his memo to an unnamed popular anti-SJW who leaked it to the media. That person never gets any shit for costing James his job. Yeah, I didn't even know that was how it worked. I thought someone from the job leaked it. How do you think Alabama will fare against Oklahoma? Well, I'm biased. I don't know if you can. I don't know if I'm the person to ask. That game against Georgia was really, really shaky. And to be fair, I think Georgia's probably better than Oklahoma. So I'm not that worried. If we end up playing Clemson, though, that may be scary. Aaron, thank you for the $10. Thanks, man. Really appreciate the time you dedicate to engaging your followers. I appreciate that. An advanced alien race decided that the U.S. isn't a real democracy, and so they must invade, regime change, and install a real democracy. Whose side would you be on in the war? What? I'm certainly not gonna be on the side of the aliens. I don't think that two wrongs make a right. And how do I even know that they're actually going to install a democracy? How do I know that's what they're going to do? They may just conquer us and become a totalitarian, oppressive dictatorship. Have you heard the Freakonomics episode on the gender pay gap? They said the biggest factor was sacrificing money for proximal flexibility, giving up salary to work from home. I have not seen that episode. I'm pretty sure there's no definite answer as to what the biggest factor is. But I'm sure that many people have theorized, and I'm sure that that's one of the theories. Any thoughts on the idea of alien intervention on the building of our societies? Probably didn't happen. But in general, I don't give that much credence to things for which there is no evidence. I guess it's fun. It's fun to think about. I love watching Ancient Aliens. That show's hilarious. And it's fun to just like turn off your brain for a second and watch stuff like that. Is just don't be an asshole, an argument from emotion. I don't think it's an argument at all. It's just like a statement of worldview. My Star Trek fan. I guess I'm not like a hardcore Star Trek fan, but I love Star Trek: The Next Generation, which is the primary way I have consumed Star Trek in my life. I think that's like one of the best shows ever. The original Star Trek show is pretty good too, but I like TNG better. But I'm not like a Trekkie or anything. Like I don't know any of the nerdy details of the series. I haven't seen much Deep Space Nine. I've heard that Deep Space Nine is just as good as TNG, but I did not really watch that much of it. I think by the time Deep Space Nine came out, that's when I was like probably like in middle school or something, and that's when I was like more into like comics and wrestling and Dragon Ball Z and stuff. So I kind of like moved away from that kind of stuff because I used to watch Star Trek, the original Star Trek, with my dad, just like every day. But once I became a little bit older, I started getting into other things. I've I have a couple of friends that say that Deep Space Nine is better. Do you have any opinions on essential oils? Um, I've done a little bit of research about essential oils, and from what I understand, um, there's just no evidence that they do anything. Someone actually approached me to do a sponsorship for their essential oil company, and so I did a little research about it, and I was like, wait, this is kind of like bullshit. So I didn't do it. Have you ever followed a YouTuber who isn't necessarily political, but who you found on a couple of occasions show a degree of extreme ignorance when getting on political subjects? Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people fit in that description. I think a really big example of that is H3 Productions, who a lot of people have basically canceled at this point. But I I generally think that Ethan and Hila are like good people, but they talk about politics they talk about politics too much for not really knowing what the hell they're talking about. And they like fall into this um sort of centrist mentality, which is really annoying. But I think that applies to a lot of people. How did we ever tolerate all the Dragon Ball Z episodes where nothing happened? Used to love that show, but rewatching it seems like 88% of the show is people flying between locations and powering up. Yeah, I mean, I think the original show is like unwatchable at this point. But when you think about the episodes where things did happen, it was pretty cool. And the sort of updated shows that they've come out with today, like Dragon Ball Z Kai and Dragon Ball Super, are a lot. The pacing is a lot better, so you get to enjoy the same Dragon Ball Z, you know, stuff, except without all of the waiting. Well, homeopathy is pretty BS. Essential oils do actually carry some properties, though. I don't know about that. Have you come across History YouTube at any point? Maybe. I'm not sure. I can't think of a channel that I know of, but I'm sure I have. Are you a Team 4-star fan? I don't really know anything about Team 4-star. I don't know. When I was a kid, I loved Dragon Ball Z. I'm not really a big anime guy, but when I was in middle school, I like loved Dragon Ball Z. And I still sort of think it's cool. Like I think the characters are cool, and I think it doesn't have much of a story. The story is just sort of like a guy comes that's like threatening to blow up the universe or the earth, and the heroes have to kill him. That's kind of the story. But the interactions between the characters I think is really cool, and I think the characters are good. It has good characters. My wife and I have been talking about the approach to raising children. Do you have any thoughts on the approach to socializing a girl to be competitive in the professional world? Well, I don't know. I don't have kids, and also I'm not a girl, so I don't know if I have the best view on this. Because and a lot of it is not necessarily what a daughter or what a woman might do, because it's gonna require society to get better. And I think society probably will get better over time, especially in the time that it takes, your potential daughter to enter the workforce. But I think that just encouraging women to be assertive and inquisitive and things like that. I think that those types of things are important. Like, I think that a lot of girls are taught to value modesty and like sort of just like minding their own business and not bothering people and apologizing for everything. I think a lot of women are just sort of taught to do that, and maybe those are sort of things that you can seek to reverse. I made a tweet about this a while back, but I remember last year, um, I have a really big family on both sides. Like my grandparents on my mom's side had like 8 children, and my grandparents on my dad's side had like 9 children. And all those people, all my aunts and uncles have children, and some of their children have children. So I have like a huge family, lots of cousins and stuff. And also a lot of little kids. So last year, I think it was Christmas. Usually in holidays, I get together with my family, and it's just a huge fucking party. So many people everywhere, including a bunch of little kids running around. And so I hung out with my mom's side for Christmas, and everybody was hanging around. And for some reason on my mom's side, most of the little kids are little boys. I just kind of turned out that way. And as you might imagine, if you've hung around little boys before, they are rambunctious and loud, and they run around, and they're just like throwing shit around. And it's, if you are not used to being around kids, it can be very obnoxious. So, these boys are just running around playing, and, they're not necessarily causing any trouble, but they're just loud and annoying. And I noticed that, the parents of these kids, I guess they're just used to it. So they just kind of tune it out. They don't really say anything, The boys just run around, literally just almost screaming at the top of their lungs. But the parents just tune it out because I guess they're used to it. And they didn't really, say anything until like something got broke or somebody started crying or someone got hurt. That's when they intervened. But in general, they just didn't say anything. So on the flip side, a couple months later was my grandmother on my dad's side. She had an 80th birthday. So we decided to surprise her as a family, and just kind of they called all the family that lived around the country to come and visit her. She lives in Connecticut. So we all like flew to Connecticut, and we surprised her. Like her whole family was there. It was really cool. And it turns out a lot of the little kids on my dad's side are little girls. And again, it just kind of turned out that way. I mean, there's like 1 or 2 little boys, but it's mostly girls. And just like the little boys, they're little kids, They like run around. They, they make noise. They yell and scream. They play, things like that. But what I noticed is with the girls, whenever they got just a little bit too loud, their parents would be like, hey, shut up, calm down, be quiet, you're being too loud. Just always, anytime they got a little bit too loud, anytime they got a little bit too rambunctious, hey, stop running, sit down, fix your shirt, be quiet. And this was like really interesting to me. Obviously, this is just one example, but I think that it really is sort of exemplifies the different way that we socialize women versus men. Women are sort of taught to be sort of quiet and modest and don't bother anybody and don't inconvenience anybody. Sit down, just do what you need to do. So yeah, it was kind of a long story to get to that point, but you understand what I'm saying. How could I not be a child expert? I spent 18 years of my life living among children in the wild. Well, honestly, if you spent a lot of time around children, you probably have some you probably have some insight into how children work. Have you ever had a root canal? No. But honestly, I haven't been to the dentist in a long time. And I'm pretty sure that when I do eventually get to the dentist, they're going to tell me that you need to just fix all this shit. There's a bunch of shit going on in there and you need to fix it. So who knows what's going to happen? I'm kind of like afraid to do it, but I know I need to. But maybe I haven't been to the dentist recently. I always associate the dentist with like pain, but I don't know. I'm sure that the technology has advanced since the last time I went to the dentist, so maybe they've got some cool stuff now. Yeah, it's probably been more than 10 years for me. But I have dental insurance now, so I might as well go. Root canals don't hurt anymore. Is that true? That's cool. But I mean, technology advances. My friends are having kids, and it's gotten to the point where they literally have screaming arguments over stuff like repainting a wine red wall in their son's bedroom because it's not a boy color. Yeah, there are still people that are like very traditional about that kind of thing. And having kids is like the last thing on my mind now, but if that ever happens, I would hope to have a partner that's a little more progressive about that kind of thing. What creative things are you passionate about and engage in? Art, music? I mean, I guess currently the only or the main creative thing that I do is make YouTube videos. I used to do a lot more other stuff, but I don't as much anymore. I used to draw. I used to make music. But it's been a while since I've done that. I drew a little bit. I was drawing a little bit the other day. And I kind of want to get back into it, but I think that my creative outlet is just YouTube. Yeah, I wouldn't go to the dentist if I didn't have insurance. But the problem is if there's a really major surgery that needs to be done, my insurance probably won't cover it because I have just sort of like a really basic plan. And I actually already have medical debt, so it would be great not to have more. Baths or showers? Definitely showers. I think baths are gross. I don't understand it. I also don't really like being submerged in water. I understand that a lot of other people do, but it's not really my jam. Did I grow up in Alabama? Yes. Is there anything you wish you knew before starting to make videos? Anything I wish I knew? I don't know. I wish I knew how to make videos. I learned a whole lot of stuff about how to make videos. It would be more convenient if I already knew that stuff. Like how to work a camera, how lighting setups work, different editing tricks. There's a lot of stuff. Do you have pets? No, I don't. I'm thinking about getting like a cat or something, even though I don't really like cats. But I probably won't. This seems like an unnecessary extra expense. But sometimes I think that it would be good to have like a, like a little animal companion. But my apartment is already kind of crowded because my both of my brothers are here at the moment. So another creature may not be very good. But my goal eventually is to get my own place. And at that point, I may want, a little bit of companionship from a living being. Assuming I'm not like dating someone by the time that happens. All right, Amelia, thank you for coming to the stream. Appreciate it. Any music that you're into? I don't know. I don't follow music that much. I feel like this seems weird to people. I mean, I like music and I often encounter different songs and artists that I like, but I don't actively follow music. I just sort of randomly find stuff throughout my normal activities. So I can't really think of any specific things that I'm into right now. Just if I like really want to listen to music, I just listen to old stuff that I used to like growing up. What, if anything, are African American kids told MLK and the civil rights movement in general when they're growing young? I don't understand that sentence. I feel like it's missing a word. Favorite genre of movie? I don't have a favorite genre of movie. I like any movie that's good. What are they told about MLK? Well, I don't know what kids are told about MLK these days because I'm not a kid and I don't have a kid and I don't know. When I was a kid, I mean, I think that I went to like a black school, so I think that we had pretty good education about a black history. And we were told about a lot of people that a lot of other people may not know that much about, Maybe, I don't know. I didn't I didn't go to white schools, but we learned about people like fucking Booker T. Washington and W.B. Du Bois and fucking there's a lot of other people that you may not know about and different people that had different views on stuff. Um, and I think most people talk about Martin Luther King. And to be fair, when you're talking to children, you do kind of like dumb things down just so they can understand the basic idea. But I think a lot of people grow up talking about Martin Luther King as if he was just sort of this very passive, like lovey-dovey type dude, which just really isn't true. Like, obviously he was nonviolent. That's like one of the main things about him. But Martin Luther King Jr. was a gangster. Like, that dude was a beast. He was very strategic about everything he did. And he was definitely not passive. And he had a whole team behind him, and they were scheming. Everything he did was very calculated. But I think a lot of people think of him as just sort of like just this passive black preacher who gave speeches and just walked on the front lines, and like people threw rocks at him and he was like, "Stop throwing rocks at me." And it's like, I don't think it was like that. Yeah, he was also a socialist. And even though he was a reverend, he was actually very critical of religion. He was very critical of white people. Like, a lot of people talk about Martin Luther King as if he was sort of like this kumbaya, let's all get together and hold hands. And to be fair, the "I Have a Dream" speech is probably his most famous thing. He wants people to be together, but he, letter to Birmingham jail is like, I think people should read that after they read the "I Have a Dream" speech. They should read letter from Birmingham jail, because it provides some real nuance to the whole thing. I don't know that much about Mark Lamont Hill. I've seen him on TV a lot, but I can't really give you a thorough opinion on it. What's my medical debt for? Honestly, it's just for like fucking routine stuff like x-rays and tests for things. Like, I went to the doctor saying, "Hey, I've got some chest pains." So they did an x-ray, and they did the fucking electrocardiogram machine. And they were like, "Hey, it doesn't look like anything's wrong. It's probably just anxiety. By the way, here's like a $3,000 bill." American healthcare is dumb. Opinion on vapes and vape culture. I don't really pay attention or give a shit. Live your life. Do whatever makes you happy. What's up, Mr. Morgan Farts? He may have vaped. Did Martin Luther King Jr. smoke cigarettes? I don't know. He may have. He did smoke cigarettes. So he may very well have vaped. He just kind of I kind of like guessed that he smoked cigarettes because he was probably stressed out all the time. Was he one of those people who criticizes people who use religion to control people without realizing that's the sole reason organized religion exists? I don't know about that specifically. I just know that, like, once he became more educated, he started to be more suspicious about the truth of Christianity. Yeah, I was gonna say like probably back then, there was pretty much no stigma against cigarettes back then. So probably everybody smoked. Nobody thought it was that big a deal, I think. Well, I mean that's not true. I think people understood that it was unhealthy, but not to the extent that people do now. At least by the 60s. In the like 20s, probably nobody really understood what the hell was going on. I want to see if I can find a picture of Martin Luther King smoking a cigarette. Apparently, he was smoking a cigarette when he was shot, according to this one article that I just randomly found. Interesting. Did people just casually use cocaine up through the 19th century and even into the 20th? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised though. I think cocaine used to be used, before it was like a illegal controlled substance or whatever. People, it used to be like a consumer product and it used to be like used in medicine and stuff. I think it's still used in medicine to some extent. It seems like it was mostly used for medical purposes throughout its history. What's up, that creepy fellow? I was raised a very proud Black Power and social justice. Reading Nelson Mandela, Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, MLK autobiographies was the very weakening. You really can't have idols. Nobody's perfect. Indeed, nobody is perfect. But especially now, I think it's important to separate the work that someone does from the person's character. The sun's going down. I'm losing my lighting. That's better. Yeah. Especially when you're talking about people from many years ago. I would argue that Jaden Smith is perfect. You know what? Whatever worked for you, my friend. Is it okay to idolize a person for good deeds they did while acknowledging they also did bad things? Well, sure. I mean, idolize is a strong word, but yeah, I mean that applies to a lot of the people we've been talking about. That applies to Martin Luther King. Like Martin Luther King, like cheated on his wife, I'm pretty sure. And there's evidence that he plagiarized his like college dissertation. So he wasn't like a perfect person, but he did a lot of really amazing shit. But like I said before, I choose to separate a person's character from their work. That's the only way that I could appreciate anything, honestly. Like if you decide that you are going to refuse to acknowledge or support anybody that has done anything bad, I just don't know how you're going to enjoy anything in life. It just doesn't seem very useful. Super cool that T1J's live stream with Q&A. It kind of feels like being on a date with him. Need candles. Maybe I'll bring some candles next time. But I'm glad that you guys enjoy the stream. I don't know. My streams are generally, there's usually okay number of people, enough people to get a conversation going. But the streams are not as popular as they could be, I guess. But the people that do come to the streams seem to really enjoy them, so I appreciate that. Is cheating on your wife really such a bad thing? Yeah, I would say so. It's literally lying and betraying the trust of someone that you claim to love. It's pretty bad. How do you get better at separating your own work from your own character in terms of self-respect? Me? I don't separate my work from my character. My work is inspired by my character, but that doesn't apply to everybody. I can't tell another person how to do that. That's their own journey that they have to figure out. And honestly, like when I see someone whose work is inspired by their character, that makes it harder for me to separate. That's why it's hard for me to enjoy Louis C.K. anymore. Because it seems to me that his work is like inspired by his behavior. So it's like not that funny to me anymore. Natalie Wynn has said that in her time as a YouTuber, she has learned that fans are not friends and she does not put as much personal information in her content. Do you agree? Yeah, I agree. For sure. But there's a limit. Or there's a line, I should say. Because when you're on YouTube, part of what makes YouTubers successful is making the audience feel a connection to you and making them feel like you're their friend or you're their big brother or big sister or whatever. And that's part of how you succeed on YouTube. And that's part of how ContraPoint succeeded on YouTube and how she blew up so fast is by making that connection to people and becoming a mentor and almost an idol to a lot of people. And part of the way you do that is by getting personal sometimes. I think Natalie is in a unique position because she's held to such a high standard, and maybe that's her fault. or not her fault. Maybe it's like partially her fault. It's definitely not totally her fault, but she's sort of held to such a high standard for many reasons, and so when if she does anything that seems to fall below that standard, people jump on her very quickly. And also, the fact that she's trans, I think, has a lot to do with it. People just don't like trans people. It sucks. It's bad, but people are just gonna be shittier to trans people than they are to other people. So I think that even people that claim to be your fans, I think that will happen. So I think she's just in a more precarious position than a lot of people. But I definitely agree with that. Me personally, I'm not a private person at all. Like, I don't really claim to have very many personal secrets, and I'm happy to talk about almost anything regarding my life, just as long as it doesn't throw someone else under the bus. But even given that I don't talk about my life that much on YouTube, I do a little bit more on Twitter, but not even that much on Twitter either. But mainly it's just because I don't think it's that interesting. I don't really know what I'm gonna say that people want to hear. And honestly, like, I think I've set myself up to where people expect a certain type of content from me. And as I said before, whenever I stray from that content, it doesn't seem like people are that into it. But as a result, I think that I have much lower audience engagement than someone like Natalie or someone like a lot of these other YouTubers that people feel very close to. And that's fine, you know, I'm not like complaining, but I'm just sort of observing that that's how it works. And I try to think of things that I can do to make the engagement better. But it may just be sort of outside of my personality to just put all my emotions on the line like that. I don't know. But it's important to understand that your audience is not your friends. And I think that's one thing that I'm good at. Because I think a lot of people, especially people who talk about politics and things like that have audiences, they just assume that their audience is going to always support them and always be understanding of them and always be charitable to what they're saying. But it just doesn't work that way. Audiences are fickle. Like, you're going to have some super fans that are always on your side, but in general, audiences are fickle. And if you fuck up, they're going to let you know. So I think that I've done a good job, and there's a few other people that have done a good job of putting themselves in a position where their audience doesn't expect a certain thing. Like, your audience, I think my audience expects me to say my opinion. And I think my audience is prepared that sometimes they may not fully agree with my opinion. And there are a few other people like that. I don't think that applies to all creators. And I don't even think that applies to Natalie. I think most of Natalie's fans expect to agree with everything she says. So if she says something they don't agree with, they are very surprised and sometimes hostile. I don't think I have that problem to the same extent. Sometimes I do. Like, when I made a video about veganism, that was an example of people just being like very hostile. And, you know, maybe I could have did that better. But I'm just saying, in general, I don't think people I think people expect me to make a compelling argument, but I don't think people expect to always agree with me. And because of that, I think I'm less likely to have my audience turn on me on a dime like that. But it's still something to keep in mind. And I think there's a few YouTubers that have that sort of dynamic, and I think that's a good dynamic to have. But it's, you know, it's a hard line to tiptoe, you know. But yeah. Yeah, Natalie's talking XOXO. Actually, I watched like half of that. I didn't finish it. Yeah, Gandhi was racist for sure. Did not like African people. Natalie separates her content from herself by using characters in theater. She's a completely different person than ContraPoints. Absolutely. The problem is her audience still treats the things that her characters say as if they are her opinion. So she still has to be careful with that. I suppose that I'm saying I think it's puritanical to be dedicated to monogamy. Yeah, but if you agreed to monogamy with another person and you came to agreement and then you breached that agreement by lying and cheating and being and betraying someone's trust, that's really shitty. Did MLK really plagiarize his dissertation? I mean, I haven't like spent a long time researching it, but I remember reading an article that didn't seem to be right wing that gave some proof of it. I didn't know that Tumblr was doing that. I guess that's what someone was talking about earlier. Someone said something about, what do you think about Tumblr? I was like, I don't know what's going on Tumblr. So they're banning not safe for work content. Isn't that like the only reason people still go to Tumblr? Yeah, if you aren't monogamous and you see another person, then it's not cheating. That's the wrong word. Well, I mean, it can still be cheating if you're being dishonest and lying about it. But if you're not, then it's not cheating. So that wouldn't apply. Natalie was one of my main entries into the world of liberal YouTubers, present company accepted. I think that Natalie is a lot of people's introduction to the more progressive side of things. Cause she's. I mean, I don't know what your like previous or what your political viewpoint is, but but a lot of Natalie's work is targeted, like semi-targeted towards conservatives and right wingers. Like her goal is literally to change people's minds about certain things. And it seems like it works. I mean, I think Natalie is on a different level. Like she's basically a genius. I don't know. She's able to do things that most people aren't able to do. And I mean, her success shows it. Like I think she deserves every ounce of success that she's gotten recently. Do you remember where you went online to find funny videos before YouTube? I guess like Newgrounds and E-Bombs World and Albino Black Sheep, stuff like that. I think Nata's training in academic philosophy gives her a unique skill set to create the content. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I honestly, yeah, that's a big thing because YouTube is sort of associated with sort of amateurism, which is fine, but there are a few people that add a level of expertise to what they do, not just in political YouTube, but all YouTube. And those people almost always they just seem a little bit better. Like they have more authority. Their videos are better. The things that they say are better. And I think that's what Natalie's got. Like an example is Casey Neistat is a huge YouTuber. But the thing is, he also, before being a YouTuber, was a professional filmmaker and a professional, videographer. So he brought a level of expertise to YouTube that no one really ever had. And then add that with just a natural knack for communicating and understanding how YouTube works, and he blew up, and that's just how it works. And that's what we're seeing with ContraPoints, I think. Do you think Natalie's fans think she's more left-wing than she actually is? Her work tends to be popular among anarchist communists, even though she never publicly supported that ideology. Yeah, but to be fair, well, I don't know. I would have to talk to her about this. I think that she's like more and more leaning left as time goes on. So by the time it's all done, she may very well just be a pure communist. But I think you're right. And I think she's probably intentionally avoiding talking about it. And that's another example too. Like I talk about all the time how I'm not an anti-capitalist. I say it all the time on Twitter, and I've said it on the stream many times. And that's a thing that other YouTubers, I think their audience would just completely turn on them if they said something like that. I don't know. Maybe that would happen to Natalie. I'm not sure. I think it would probably surprise a lot of people. But like I said, I think I'm in a position where people don't expect to agree with me on everything, and they're fine with it. Well, I think a lot of leftists supported Hillary just because they didn't want Trump to win. But I don't know. Yeah, the channel is called ContraPoints. It's like the best channel on YouTube. It's probably like in my top 3 favorite YouTube channels right now. You think, knowing that, what are some skill sets that you wish were more developed for your own content and creation? I don't know. I mean, I just in general just wish I was better at the things that I do. Like I want to get better at camera work. I want to get better at lighting. I really would love to know more about audio editing and audio processing. I'm kind of ignorant about it. I mean, I know probably more than the average person because I used to make music, but I wish I knew more about that for sure. I wish I knew more about like color grading and color correction and stuff like that. I learn as I go. I've learned a few things, but I wish I knew more about that. So those are examples. She supported Hillary in the primary. Okay, yeah, I think I remember this conversation. It feels like Natalie struggles with providing nuance to a leftist audience. They expect her to be more diehard because she's trans and are then disappointed and angry when she strays. Yeah. But like I said, I think that a lot of her videos are not targeted towards leftists. So I think that's probably why that nuance is lost on leftists, because the videos aren't for them. And I guess that's because like when I think about my own videos, I try to like I try to think about things in a nuanced way, and a lot of times I'll give the art, even if I know that my opinion is the same as most of my audience, I will still consider the opposing argument. I will present the opposing argument a lot of times, and that may have the result of convincing people to disagree with me, but I think it's important for the sort of the thoroughness of my argument to have responded to the better rebuttals to it. What's up, Kresimir Golik? But yeah, I feel like I have seen Hillary, or I have seen Natalie be critical of Hillary on Twitter, but maybe not. And like I said, I think that she is further left now than she was then. I don't know if she's to the point where she no longer supports Hillary, but I don't know. Other two of my top three are Vlogbrothers and Captain Disillusion. What do you think about the idea of both sides between left and right? Personally, I'm okay with it to a small extent, but it seems like it gets wildly abused. What do you mean exactly by both sides? I think there's a lot of fallacies involved with that. There's the appeal to moderation, which is the idea that the best opinion or the correct opinion is always the moderate opinion. That when there are two sides to an argument, always being in the middle is the best. That's obviously not true. Sometimes one side is just right and one is wrong. And then there's the balance fallacy, which I talked about earlier in the stream. I don't know if you were here. But that's the idea that all viewpoints are equally valid or equally likely to be valid. And again, that's also obviously not true. Some viewpoints are not valid. Now, sometimes there are cases where people on both sides have a little bit of a point. And sometimes there are cases where people on both sides are completely off base. But I wonder if I think that's less likely than one side just being more right than the other side in any given argument. Not even that necessarily left versus right, but just any debate where there are two sides, or at least two sides. Usually one side is more right than the other. That's my theory, at least. Do you think the black woman who accused NDT of sexual assault got little to no response 4 years ago because of the progress of Me Too, or is it racial? I don't know. It's hard to ignore the racial aspect, because when the Me Too movement happened, the accuser spoke up again because she wanted to get her story heard while all of this attention was being put on it. And it still didn't really get any media, any press about it. Nine 6 JMB, what's up? I haven't seen that name in a while. And the thing about the NDT accusation is it was a much more serious accusation than the ones that have come out recently. And I don't know. It's hard to really ignore the racial aspect. And when I talk to people about it, like the woman who accused NDT of assault is, you know, she's kind of like well, first of all, you would only know this if you researched her, which I did because I made a video about it. But she's, you know, she's like a musician. She's kind of like this sort of new age hippie type person. I don't know the correct words to describe what I'm saying, but I think you understand what I'm saying. But a lot of people are saying, well, you know, that woman seems a little weird. She seems a little crazy. She seems less credible. And I'm like, why exactly does she seem less credible? Because she's into different stuff than the average person. Like, I didn't get that. Like, what exactly makes her less credible? Like, it's hard for me to imagine that if it was a white woman that people would have the same, that people would just assume the lack of credibility. Do you have text to speech? What do you mean? Oh, you mean like when you donate? No. But it does pop up on the screen. I was thinking about doing, I'm not even sure if that's what you're talking about, but I was thinking about doing text to speech. If any of you like watch Twitch streamers, that happens where someone donates and they leave a message and the message will be read on screen. But and that like incentivizes people to donate sometimes, but it's really obnoxious, so I don't think I'm gonna do it. No, like someone types in chat, it says the message. I don't know. Is that a thing that can happen? I've never seen that before. When someone just types in chat. Do you think someone like Trump could ever be Heiko? Yeah, sure, if he just changes the way he behaves. People can become better people. It happens all the time. All right, everyone. I'm going to leave in about 5 minutes. We are approaching the 2-hour mark. And I'm hungry. So if you've got like one final question or message that you'd like to send, you can get it in now. We can take a look at it. I definitely appreciate all of you for joining me for my stream. If you don't know, I stream every week, every Monday, usually at 2 p.m. Central Time. Today I started at 3 p.m. Central Time, but it's usually at 2 p.m. Central Time. I'm going to have to check out that text-to-speech. I didn't know that that was a thing you can do. I'll see how that works. Sounds like it could be pretty obnoxious, though. Joshy Poo had a stream on YouTube. Are you sure that it wasn't when someone did a donation? Do you think Melania has a security detail assigned to her to keep her from escaping? Well, that's a bit of a conspiracy theory. I doubt that she wants to escape. She's like one of the most powerful people in the world right now. I think she's probably good. Well, I'll have to check that out, the text-to-speech, see how that works. I'm always interested in finding out different things you can do on your stream. How does it work? It was on YouTube. Have you researched about labor value theory? I don't know. That seems like a very general idea. I don't exactly know what you're referring to. I mean, I have not like specifically researched, like I've not like Googled labor value theory and like looked it up, but I can. But I mean, if you get specific about the ideas, then we can talk about how that works. But not right now because I'm gonna leave soon. Would you ever make a climate change video? Probably not. I don't generally desire to make videos arguing that facts are true. Just seems like a waste of time. I used to maybe do stuff like that, but I don't really do it anymore. If there's an interesting angle that I can take about climate change, then maybe. ContraPoints, speaking of her, recently did a video about climate change. And it was great. And I was very surprised that I was that interested in a video about climate change. Because when you make a video that essentially says, hey, climate change is true, that's like kind of not that interesting a point. It's like, hey, facts are true. It's like a tautology almost. It's like, hey, it's almost like making a video that's like, hey, gravity exists. Isn't that cool? But I guess climate change is a little more significant because it's like a big problem that humanity is going to have to solve, or we're kind of screwed. You guys are like saving the deep questions for the end of the stream. I saw Hank Green's response to that climate change skeptic, and it was really good. What are your thoughts on free will versus determinism? I hate arguments about free will because I don't know, it gets very pedantic. I think it is trivially obvious that it is the case that all of our actions are based on prior occurrences. Like, obviously that's true. Like, I think it's trivially demonstrable. So if you think that means we don't have free will, then okay, we don't have free will. Who cares? We need to live and we need to behave as if we have free will. Otherwise, you can make the argument that nothing matters and no actions are good or bad or helpful or useful because it doesn't matter because we don't have free will. It's just not a useful thing to think about. Labor value theory is a core belief on which Marx builds his ideology as opposed to the capitalist idea that value is subjective. Yeah, I mean, I'm not intimately familiar with the jargon. But I mean, I can talk about the ideas. Caden Orange, I'm kind of old, but I'm not that out of date with the internet. I know how these things work. You should do it. You should have like did it a little bit. You gotta be a little bit more sly with it. Anyway, I guess I'm gonna go now. Thank you for watching my stream as always. There are a bunch of links in the description below this video if you would like to check them out. That would be great. If you want to support me or this channel or this live stream, consider becoming a patron on Patreon. You can support me by donating a couple bucks a month just to help me make my videos better and help me make this all sustainable. And like I said, I stream every week, every Monday at 2 p.m. Central Time. I'll probably be posting on Twitter. I just finished the script for another video, so that should be coming out soon. I have to like film it and edit it and all that stuff still, but I finished the script, so that's good. Follow me on Twitter though if you want to like keep up with me. Twitter is by far the place that I'm by far the most active. And feel free to email me if you want to ask more questions. Or you can ask me a question on my Curious Cat. CuriousCat.me/the1janitor. But I guess that's about it. I will see you all next time. Bye.